are baking apple turnovers today. If you have watched us before, you'll notice that I have changed around in the kitchen. We're at the hob today just because it's a lot easier. We have got a bit of work going on outside the house today, so if you can hear anything or if I'm too echoey, please do let me know. I am wearing my microphone, but we're still filling up the kitchen with items and it's a little echoey, so let me know if you can hear me. And who's with me today?
So Jill Bonshaw from across the channel.
Hi! Always fun to have people join us from all around the country and abroad.
We've got lots of lovely messages saying how they've missed us, so we're glad to be back.
Yeah, we're very good. So Mr. Boozy Bakers is behind the camera as usual, taking your questions and any shout outs. I've got to say, this one was really interesting that we got quite a few people saying, why aren't the apple turnovers going to be boozy? Well, because whilst we are boozy bakers and we have made a pornstar martini cake and a gin and tonic cake today, for you guys, we know that there are people of all different ages, including children, cooking along, and we want to make it as accessible as possible. So next week I'm going to give you a boozy alternative if you want to add a tipple, but this week they are just good old-fashioned apple turnovers. Yeah, hopefully everyone can enjoy them. I will go through the list of what I've got. So the water, if you had the ingredients list, I said about a bowl of water. We're not cooking with that water, we just want to have it to hand so that when we're peeling our apples, we're going to place a bit of lemon juice in the water and keep them from browning. I've also got 100 grams of brown sugar, some butter. Margarine will do the trick as well, but a nice bit of butter. Some cinnamon. This is not compulsory. If you don't like cinnamon, you can leave it out. An egg. This is for glazing, so anyone who was worried about the size of the egg, it's for glazing, so it won't matter. Some granulated sugar. That's the best one to use, anything that's coarse. A bit of corn flour. I think that's everything. Yeah, so I will go along at a nice steady speed for you. First thing I'm going to say is your oven temperature. If you would like to preheat, typical me, we've also got puff pastry, but I've left that in the fridge. So I was going to say, if you've got your puff pastry out, if I were you, I'd chuck it back in the fridge to keep it nice and cold until we need it. So that is around, but I've not got it out because I just don't want it heating up to room temperature. So oven temperatures, if you want to put it on at 200 degrees Celsius or 180 for fan, and gas mark 6. Right, Mr. Boozy Baker's on it for the people that need the gas mark. Right.
Got also a lot of love for the new kitchen, so thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. For anyone concerned for the well-being of the oak kitchen we had before, it is actually being repurposed in my workshop, which is being put together at the moment. So no harm came to the, well, not so much harm came to the oak kitchen before. I couldn't bear to get rid of it. It was lovely, it just didn't suit our needs in our new kitchen, so I've now got a nice workshop being fitted with it. Right, so what I'm going to suggest first, sorry for the beeping, that's my oven telling me I'm up to temperature. I've got my my bowl filled with water even, and I'm just going to add a couple of tablespoons of lemon, and this just stops the apples from browning. So I'm just going to give that a stir. Hopefully you can see everything. We've worked on the positioning. So don't worry, Mr. Boozy Baker, I'm coming more this way anyway. Now I said 3 to 4 apples. It really does depend on the size of the apples you're using. When I made this mix in the week, I actually had double the amount of sugar and it ended up so much syrup, it was not necessary. So I think 3 apples, which I mean that's filling my palm, I think that it's like a tennis ball size, that is fine. If your apples are smaller, maybe go to 4. And all we need to do is peel them.
Mark's asked, can he add sultanas?
Absolutely, yeah, we do love it when you get inventive. So feel free to use sultanas. Do tell us if you're doing something different. We do love to hear it.
Well, Gemma in Portsmouth, she's had to use a pre-made pastry block, which she's just rolled out as there were no pre-rolled left.
That's fine.
Hope she's done it thin enough.
Well, what we will do is we will look, but I would imagine something like a pound, you know, the pound coin in thickness, something like that would be fine, maybe even a little bit thinner, but we'll look at that when we roll it out. So if you wanted to, if it's rolled out on the side and you're worried about it, put some cling film on either side and maybe roll it around a rolling pin and put it in the fridge. Right, so I'm just going to peel, I'm going to go for 3 apples because I don't think I'll need any more than that. I just thought apple turnovers, nice, like still slightly warm, not too warm, not like a, you know, McDonald's burning volcanic apple pie, but I thought they were really good for a bit of an autumn day. Which is quite a nice day, actually. It's quite sunny. Well, where we are anyway. Right, so 3rd apple. There we go. Bill has just come in and forgotten that we were doing the workshop. Should get him on here instead. He'll be enjoying the results afterwards.
Sue's just checking, you've added the lemon to the water.
Yeah, so we added 2 tablespoons of lemon to the water, and then the minute I'm cutting these apples into kind of bite-sized chunks, and I'm just going to pop them into the water so that they don't brown. Right, I'm just going to have to remove the apple bits. Didn't think this one's through, but if I pop it over here, I am very sure Mr. Busy Bakers can wipe those into the bin, or swipe them rather. Right, so I'm going to, the way I'm going to cut around an apple, I mean, if you've got a corer, feel free to take out the core. I haven't at the moment because I'm still unpacking things. So I've just cut round the core, and I've got big chunks, and I'm just going to slice those. Just dice them into just bite-sized chunks. Can we see that all right?
Yep.
And pop them in the water to stop them browning. Put those over there. So I now have my apple sitting there for when I'm ready to use. I'm going to have a sip of wine. Once you have got to that point, give us a thumbs up. And when we've seen a flurry of thumbs up, then we'll move on to the next step.
Elizabeth was late joining. What she missed so far?
All we've done, Elizabeth, is dice up apples into bite-sized chunks. I've used 3 apples and I've popped them in some water with a bit of lemon juice to stop them browning. Right, are we doing okay on the thumbs up?
Yes.
Right, so you now need to leave your apples in the bowl for a bit. I've got some butter here, and I'm just going to put a couple of tablespoons worth into my pan. So I'm using a wooden spoon because I'm naughty. So quite large tablespoons. There we go, that'll do. I said if you've got margarine, that will work too. So I'll move that out of the way. There we go. And you are going to want to heat this until it's melted.
I have to say, there's so many suggestions here. We should be writing these down. There's plenty of things for us to do here.
You'll get a piece of paper, Mr. Boozy.
I'll pick them up later.
Right, so my butter is melted. Can I see that?
Just about, yeah.
I don't want to
pour it any further.
So my butter is melted. So to that, I'm going to add 100 grams of soft brown sugar. Now this is light. You can add dark, and you can also, if you don't have brown sugar, you can add caster sugar. I just like the warmth that a brown sugar gives to the mix. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Again, you don't have to add the cinnamon, but it's autumn and I love it. I know some people don't, but do as you prefer.
James just says she's tried making macarons twice. It was a disaster both times, so fingers crossed for next week.
I've got so many hints and tips, you won't fail, I'm sure. Right. So with your sugar and your cinnamon in the mix, give that a nice stir.
What temp was the pan sitting at roughly?
So I've gone for a bit of a medium heat. I don't want it to be sticking. Just medium should be fine. If you feel that it's sticking to the pan, just turn it down a bit. All we're looking for is for it to combine and be melted together. Once you've got that, I'm going, I don't have a sink near me without moving too far, so I'm going to drain my apples. That works so well, I'm so happy about that. There we go. So
right.
All I'm doing, you can do this over
Can you just run through quickly what you've done with the pan?
I can. So in the pan, you've got 2 tablespoons of butter. I've melted that, and then I've added 100 grams of brown sugar and a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And I've just stirred it together. That's all it is. And then I've just drained my apples. You can do it over the sink. You can do it with your hand, to be honest, or onto a towel. And I'm just going to add those apples to the mix. Like so. Now, how are we doing? And we want to cook that now.
Katie has said her mix was very dry in the pan. Did she need more butter?
Yes, it shouldn't be dry at all. Mine's quite runny, so definitely add a good tablespoon, not teaspoon, tablespoon of butter to it. So mine, I don't know how much you can see. Can they see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
So you can see my apples are kind of stewing in a kind of syrupy brown sugar and melted butter, and I just want to cook that now so that my apples go a lot softer. Are we good? Excellent. So I'm going to give that a minute just to do its thing. We are going to thicken the sauce up, so if anyone's thinking, oh goodness, this is a really runny sauce, we are going to thicken it up, but at the moment we just want to cook those apples so that they absorb some of that sugar syrup and cook some of the syrup off as well. So there we go. So have we got any questions, or is everyone enjoying the smell of cinnamon and butter and sugar and apple in their kitchen like I am?
Rona's saying, can she add the sultanas?
Oh yeah, if you're adding sultanas, add those now as well.
Yeah,
sorry.
so Mark, so that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think just probably a handful will do, depending on how much you like them, but certainly add them now and then they'll absorb all that liquid as well. I do like an apple turnover as it is and slightly warm, but if it's not warm and it's gone cold, I like to slice it and add some nice whipped cream in there as well.
How many are we making?
Oh, that's a good question. This makes 4. So if you want more, obviously double your ingredients, but I think with the lockdown situation, you could probably stretch it to 5 with the mix, to be honest. Just make sure that you even out the amount of mixture per square. But yeah, we're aiming to make 4. So my apples are starting to soften a bit. Are we all right there? Good. My apples are starting to soften a bit, but I'm just going to give it a bit longer because I really want them. I've seen recipes for apple turnovers that the apple almost looks like it's going to roll out because it's it almost looks uncooked. And to me, apple turnovers should be almost a real soft mix inside, so that's what I'm aiming for.
Just preempted Jean's question, should the apples be soft by now?
Yeah, good. Going at the right place there. So mine look like they are starting to soften on the outside a little bit, not massively though. I'm going to give it a few more minutes, I'm always constantly stirring. I mean, you could leave this a little bit if you wanted to.
Claire said, should we have the oven on, and what temperature if we do?
So ovens, yeah, you can put your oven on to preheat. We've gone for 200 degrees Celsius, or 180 for fan, or gas mark 6.
Alison has said she seems to have a lot of liquid, is that right?
That's fine, we're going to thicken it up in a minute anyway. So we will address that. I've got quite a lot of liquid in mine. I suppose the apples release liquid too. I've got mine a bit bubbling now, not too much. If it bubbles too much, I'm going to turn the heat down. It's looking quite good.
So we've got Yang, who has Ethan, Sophie and Jamie, saying it's all smelling so nice and thank you for this.
Oh, you're very welcome.
John loves apple turnovers, looking forward to seeing the finished touch of it.
Oh, excellent.
Jan has lovely now, and Tracy, if I keep tasting my apples, I'll be down to making 3.
So I don't know about you guys, but if I press my wooden spoon gently onto an apple, it is kind of breaking up a bit, which is pretty good. It's hard to show you. I've got a little bit of bubbling going on. I'm happy with that because nothing's sticking. But I'm just going to give it a few more minutes because I don't think we're doing too badly on time. But whilst that's doing, I'm just going to move a few things away and give a little bit of advice that I found. I don't know if you remember, quite a long time ago, we did pizza making, and I said to you, move your pizza base onto the baking tray before you decorate your pizza. Same thing applies, guys. I made a mistake of putting my apple turnover together, it looked really lovely, and then having to try and transfer hot apple in pastry onto a tray. It was out of shape and it wasn't great. So I advise get a baking tray, put some parchment or baking paper on it and have it ready to go, and what we'll do is we'll put our pastry onto the baking tray first and then we're going to spoon our apple on. Right, so if you've got, I wonder if I can show you. I'll bring it up. Can you see that?
Yep.
So my apples, you can still see that they're still in their shape, but if I give them a bit of a squidge, they are changing shape. So that, I still want them cooking, but that's quite nice and soft. Remember that they're going to have some time in the oven as well. So whilst that's still on the heat, I'm not taking them off the heat, I'm just going to prepare my thickening for the sauce, and I'm just going to I'm using an egg cup, just, because I don't want a big bowl around, but I'm going to put a tablespoon of corn flour in, and I forgot my water, so I'm just going to use some of the water from earlier, have a scent of apple to it, and just a tablespoon of water, and then give it a mix up, perhaps using a slightly bigger bowl. A ramekin might have been better, but I'm going to stick to it with my nice little egg cup.
Alicia's spoon goes in it, unlike Max's burger recipe.
Yes. Well, I did anticipate that I might need a teaspoon. Right, so I just got a runny, I don't know if you can see that, it's just a runny kind of, it almost looks like milk to be honest. And I'm just going to add that to my apple mix. Pull this back a bit so you can see. And I'm going to stir that in. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. But we want that to heat now so that it thickens up that sauce. If you find that your sauce, after heating it, isn't getting really thick, don't worry too much. We're going to leave it to cool whilst we do the pastry, and then you can always just drain your apple mix so you're not putting too much sauce in with it. But let's just see how we do. And I'm just going to keep stirring and keeping it on a medium heat. How's everyone doing?
Rosa suggested you could use your wine to make the thickener. That would taste quite nice.
I could, yeah. Yeah, we did have quite a few people. I think they looked at the ingredients, saw a litre of water and wondered why it wasn't cider. But obviously that would have been a waste, really, because the apples were only touching it for a moment. Yeah, we could have added a bit of liqueur, or maybe brandy with your corn flour or something. There we go. I think it's a good point of baking in the afternoon. 2 o'clock is a reasonable time. Nice bit glass of wine. Or gin and tonic. There we go. So it's starting to thicken. When I say thicken, it's still a sauce. It's still running. It's by no means gloopy. See if I can grab some of it without an apple. I'm going to get an apple too. But you can see it's still running, but it just looks a bit thicker, and I'm going to keep stirring that. And all the time it's allowing the apples just to soften a bit more.
Rachel's is very saucy, more mushy.
That's fine. Not a problem. As I said, when we come to put it into the pie, if it's mushy, that would be lovely because you're going to have like an apple mushy filling to it. If it's a very liquidy sauce that you have, just drain a bit of it off so you're adding more of the thicker pieces of apple.
Maxine's is saying hers looks lush. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's I don't know how many of you, our kids don't overly like cooked apple. They won't eat an apple pie or something, so I'll be interested to see if they will eat an apple turnover. Particularly when it's cold, I think they might be more interested.
So, should it be thick? And what if it's too thick?
So mine is thickening. It's not too thick. If it's too thick, if you have no moisture in it, put a bit more butter in it. That's what I would do. I've still got a sauce. I will come over again and show you. Try not to burn myself.
If you can.
So I've still got a sauce. Can you see that? It's more kind of gloopy now, but it is definitely a sauce. It will still run off a spoon. If you don't have, I mean, I don't need that much sauce, but if you don't have anything, put a bit of butter in your mix, just to loosen it up a bit. And then just melt it down.
Kirsty's asked, will they last until Monday?
No, I would, well, they might. I've never tried it because I eat them too fast. With pastry, it never quite lasts as long as you want it to. What I would be tempted to do, if you want some now and some for Monday, just make 2. Do like 2 for now to eat this weekend, and then save the rest of your mixture in a bowl. Let it go cold, and then cling film it in a bowl. Put it in the fridge, and then make the extra 2 on Monday.
Jean saying hers looks a bit like lumpy gravy. Help.
Lumpy gravy. If it's the apples or the lumps, then that is perfect. If the apples aren't the lumps, and it's your sauce itself is lumpy, just really whisk it with your spoon. I mean, the corn flour that we put into it was mixed with water, so it was a paste before we put it in. If you accidentally added flour or corn flour without making it into a paste first, try and press the lumps against the side of your pan to release the corn flour into the mix.
And John's saying he takes part in Zoom cooking class every Saturday morning. He's getting more and more passionate about cooking now.
Excellent. Yeah, I love learning myself about cooking, and I love talking about baking and baking with you. I think it's very therapeutic. And the more that you know, the more that you can just whip things up. It just feels really good. So I've now turned my apple mix off of the pan. So I'll show you once more. That's how I'm leaving it. Oh, see, can you see that? So I've still got the apple pieces, but they're softer. I've still got a liquid, but but it's a little bit thicker. It looks very caramelised, to be honest, but it's still quite a thick. Hang on, let's see if I can grab some of it without burning myself. I wouldn't advise that anyone else do this. Can you see it's running? It's a bit more gloopy, a bit more syrupy, but it's still running. So I'm going to leave that off the heat for a minute whilst I focus on my pastry. So Mr. Boozy Bakers is just going to grab it out of the fridge because pastry does like being cold. So the more chilled you can keep it, the better. There we go, all well done. So we've just got pre-rolled. You can buy these as blocks as well. So if you do have a block, then you just need to roll it out. Now, for the lady who was wondering how thin, I would say that's thinner than a pound coin. 20p piece? About as thin as a 20p piece flat down on the side. Hopefully that will help you.
Here's a question for you. Kirsty's asked, what is the hardest thing that you can make?
It's the hardest thing that I can make.
Sometimes it's the decorations of things.
Yeah. Depending on, sometimes decorations, if I'm trying to imitate something that is natural and trying to make it out of sugar, that's quite hard. And marshmallows, I think possibly that is the hardest thing to really achieve with different flavours and the right texture. They do seem to be the diva of the baking world. Right, so I'm using a bit of a longer knife and I want to make 4 squares, which I know I'm not going to achieve in a rectangle. That's ridiculous. So what I'm going to do is go down halfway down the longer side. So we'll just do about half, cut it in half. And then, I suppose, Mr. Boozy Baker, tell me if there's an easier way, but I'm going to make a rough square, slightly more rectangular probably, but rough square there, and a square there. And there might be some diddy ones on the end. Right, let me get my tray back. So all the time we're doing this, our apple mix can be just cooling slightly. Right, I'm just going to lay these down on my baking tray, on the parchment. I think we'll have to do 2 at a time, just so that when they're folded over, I've got space for the next ones. I want to space them out a bit because they are going to grow in the oven. So once you've got your square, you're going to get a spoonful of the apple and put it in the centre. And I'm just draining some of the syrup. I don't want too much syrup with it. A little bit is good, too much is not great.
What size are the squares roughly?
Good question.
Look about 6 inches roughly.
Do you reckon about 6 inches?
Maybe 5 to 6 inches.
About 15, not 15 centimetres, about 12?
12 to 15 centimetres, yeah.
And then I'm just going to fold it over and try and meet all the corners together. Look, I've got a piece of apple that's just pushed out, so I'm just going to use my teaspoon just to say, no, you're going in. It's disagreeing with me, but it is going in. And then I'm going to use my finger just to press that down and push and seal the sides. And then again with this one, I'm just going to seal the sides so that all that sugar and apple stays inside. And then if you can, just push them back a bit just to allow some room for the next lot. So I'm just going to, again, I'm draining some of the syrup off, so I'm not adding too much. I think I might actually end up with a bit more apple left over, and I'm probably going to use those little offcuts and make some slightly smaller ones.
Fair enough. Kirsty's just saying the same thing with the pack she's got. She's cut it in half, but making 2 plus some mini ones with the offcuts.
Yeah, I think that's the advantage of buying the rolled out, is that you can cut it to the shape that you want. Right. So I'm just going to try and wipe away some of that syrup, press it down with my fingers, and then next one.
That could also be another answer for some of the harder stuff to make, is we can make puff pastry, but it's very time consuming.
Yeah. The pastry, we don't do a lot of pastry on these workshops just because there's a lot of time involved, which we simply couldn't cover in a quick demo. I do a quick puff pastry where I cheat, but it's still a lot of time to it.
Teresa's asked, do you moisten the edges?
Well, this is quite a sticky pastry, so I haven't had to on this. I've just pressed them down with my fingers. But you can, if you want, you could use some of the egg. We're going to glaze the top with the egg, but if you want, you could quickly mix that up and just brush a bit of the egg onto the edges if you so wished. So because I haven't got any more baking trays exactly to hand, and I've filled my tray, I don't want to overfill it. I'm going to stick with the 4, but most likely I'm going to use these extra pieces to make some smaller ones with the leftover apple. I've probably got enough for 2 little ones left in my pan. Right, so I'm going to assume that you have 4 apple turnovers on your tray. If you haven't, don't worry. All I'm going to do is crack an egg into a ramekin and give it a bit of a mix up, ready to glaze my apple turnovers. Oh, I made a right mess of that. There we go. Normally I'd use a fork, but I didn't get out a fork, so I'm using a teaspoon, and I'm just going to give that a mix up. There we go. So I've got a nice bit of mixed egg, and I'm just going to brush it, just paint it over the top of your apple turnover. Now I would say try not to get it that the egg runs down the pastry and sticks to the tray, because that puff pastry is going to puff right up, and if the egg sticks, it will kind of glue your pastry down. So particularly if you're doing this with kids, or you've accidentally, like I've done a number of times, put too much on your brush and it drips down, just get a bit of kitchen towel and just wipe it off so it just doesn't glue your pastry onto the baking tray.
Rachel's having to let her apple cool a bit more because the pastry started disintegrating.
Oh dear.
And Kirsty said the cinnamon buns were amazing. They made chocolate version of it.
Oh yum. Yeah, I do love we do make those very regularly, I've got to say. It's a bit of a family
the first thing the ovens did, wasn't it? The ovens?
It is, yeah. The minute we had the ovens installed, we tested them out with cinnamon buns. I think the kids had missed them a bit. There we go. Right, so they've been given a nice bit of glaze. That will brown them a little bit, and it also helps the sugar to stick. So a coarse sugar is really good because you can see it, it's pretty. But if you don't have it, you could use kind of a coarse brown sugar. You can use castor if you want. I've just gone for, Mr. Bakers has realised I don't have enough cutlery, so I'm just going to get a teaspoon and just shake it gradually over the top, and it will stick to that egg. There we go. I haven't put too much on each, just quarter, half teaspoon at most. Just a bit of texture. There we go. Oops. There, and they are done. Once you've got them like that, pop them straight into the oven. I'm going to give mine to Mr. B's Baker. And you can bake them for 25 minutes. Check them after 20 minutes just to make sure, because different puff pastries may say different things. But I found, because I watched them for quite a while last time, and the sides are going to go first. They are going to puff up, and you may start doubting yourself that the middle is ever going to do anything. They almost look like duck beaks. but give them the right amount of time, and the whole triangle will puff up into one big triangle. And you want to take them out when they're nice and golden brown. I would say no less than 20, but no more than 25 minutes. So keep an eye on them, and then once they are out, pop them on a cooling rack or on the top of your hob, and just give them 5-10 minutes to start cooling. If you eat them too hot, they're going to hurt your mouth. So give them time just to cool down a bit, and then you can eat them warm or let them cool down completely and cut them and fill them with a bit of cream, like I might do.
Nice. Yeah, everyone, they're saying thank you very much. Those who've come for their first visit, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Nice to have new people joining us as well as our regular bakers. So yeah, that's it. Website, online shop, you can buy some loaded cake boxes, brownies, marshmallows. You can buy our aprons. We have a recipe book. If you haven't found that, it's called Lockdown Baking with Boozy Bakers, and there's a series of our bakes on there, and you can link that through to our YouTube video as well. That is available on Amazon. So if you look up Lockdown Baking with Boozy Bakers, that will appear on there, and that's electronic and hard paperbacks as well. And we will see you next week for chocolate macarons. See you later, guys. Bye.